How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, it is an open line Friday, and you can text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777 to get the live stream, show notes, podcast, social media feed, links, every single other thing you need. I debated whether or not to say this, but it needs to be said. We are living in an age without a lot of decency. And decency, it matters because it's just being polite to each other is the lubrication of a civil society. You know, there already is this thinking on the left that being nice, it's the way the white man controls us. There really is this sinking idea among progressivism that politeness in civic conversation is whiteness. Politeness is whiteness. You will hear some activists say. And that you shouldn't be polite. And the opposite is true, that you may be able to persuade people to your side if you're just nice, if you're kind, if you're polite. And also it is the way that civic society works. And society begins to break down when you're not a decent human being. Look at the indecency of the progressive activists storming into a church and disrupting the church service and insisting that that was a peaceful protest. They are, in fact, insisting it was a peaceful protest. The dirty little secret is that most Americans don't want braying biblical donkeys in charge or protesting or harassing. People want to be left alone, and they just want some level of basic civic decency. And they're not getting that from the left. And the problem is increasingly you're not getting it from Republicans as well, and from the President of the United States himself.
I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that, and they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines, but we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries.
Y'all, that statement from the president is beneath the dignity of the president. And I know there are people who are Trump supporters who just insist that you shouldn't criticize him, but no, you have to criticize. You do. That was beneath the dignity of the president. I know people from Europe who lost their children on the front lines. They weren't a little bit behind. They were doing advance work for our soldiers and got killed. Danes, Brits, Germans, French, they died fighting with us in Afghanistan. On 9/11, it was our European allies patrolling the skies of the United States to shoot down any other planes that might be in the air that wanted to take Americans out. It was the NATO European allies who were protecting us on 9/11 while we were finding the dead and grieving. It's just shameful conduct by the President of the United States. And if you want to look and point the finger at the left and say, look how horrible they are, I'm with you on that. But if you can't also look at the President of the United States who's on your side and say, Mr. President, what the hell are you thinking? That's not only rude and offensive, it's simply not true. There are plenty of dead British soldiers who went to Afghanistan and Iraq to work with us on the front lines. It's just simply a shameful thing for the president to do. And some of you would rather get mad at me and turn off the radio than acknowledge that sometimes your president crosses lines. And when you get to the next president of the United States and he's offensive to you, you have yourself in the mirror saying, well, I never held my side accountable and I excused my guy. And if you excuse your guy all the time and don't get him to apologize for stuff like this, don't expect apologies to be forthcoming from the other side. You lead and regulate by policing your own side. And I'm just appalled that my president, not my Republican president, not the guy I supported in 2024, the President of the United States of America would be so shameful as to dismiss the sacrifice of the mothers and fathers of Great Britain and France and Germany and Italy and Denmark and elsewhere whose children died in Iraq and Afghanistan because the American nation asked them to go there with us. And they served not behind the scenes, not in the background, not a little bit behind, but were forward troops who got killed working with us. The Australians and the Brits and the Danes, they all died. In fact, per capita, do you know per capita, as many British soldiers died in Iraq and Afghanistan as American soldiers did? Did you know that? Did you have any idea? Does Donald Trump stop defending the guy when he does stuff like you say, Erickson, except none of you want to say anything. None of you want to have the decency to tell your president to be decent. And stuff like this is just morally repugnant. And if you can't understand why it's morally repugnant, don't be mad at the left for dragging down the country, because you are dragging down the country too. If you want the left to stop invading churches and to be decent people, maybe police your own side and demand decency from your own side. If you want the left to be jerks and you want to be jerks, all we're going to have in the country is jerks. And the president of the United States is more than a political leader of your side. He is the president of the United States of America and the leader of the free world. And you cannot lead the free world and be in a position of prominence in the free world when you, as president, are dismissing the deaths of the children of your allies who had your back in the Middle East, who were there on the front lines with you, who their special operators were with our special operators, bleeding and dying in the deserts of the Middle East to protect all of us from terrorists. It's a shameful thing. And the more shameful thing is that there are many of you who are more mad at me for talking about it than you are at your president of the United States for saying what he said. You're not going to improve this country. You're not going to improve the politics of this country. You're not going to benefit the country. You're not going to edify the country. And you're not going to get through this country and its insane times unless you're willing to tell your own side and Donald Trump to stop the insanity. There are many of you listening right now who lost children in war. What would you think if the president dismissed the deaths of your children? I know what you would think because of the outrage so many of you had when Joe Biden insisted no soldiers died in the evacuation of Afghanistan, and there were 13 Marines who were killed by terrorists. And all of you found it morally repugnant that the President of the United States dismissed those deaths, didn't remember those deaths, or pretended they didn't happen on his watch. And now some of you will say, but these aren't American deaths. You're right. But they're the deaths of the people who were your children's friends when they fought overseas. They were the deaths of our allies who died with our children on the battlefield on the front lines, that the President of the United States, who asked them to go die with us, is now dismissing. You'll say, well, it wasn't this president. No, but he is the president. There's only one president at a time. And if Joe Biden or Barack Obama had said the thing that Donald Trump said, you would be criticizing him for doing so. And if you're not willing to criticize Donald Trump for saying something so outrageously offensive, you're no better than them. And you want to think of yourself as better than them. You can't be better than them if you're not willing to be better than them. And it's not being better than them to give the president a pass on something or to excuse it or to say, well, he didn't know. He's the president of the United States. He damn well better have known. He was the president of the United States when Danes and Aussies and Brits were getting killed during his first term. Did he not know they were on the front lines getting killed? I'm just so tired of the people who can listen to this and just make excuses for it or get mad at people for wanting to hold him accountable. I would prefer him to be president than the people on the other side. But you know you're not going to get him or people like him. You're going to get the people on the other side if you can't maintain and morally police the boundaries of your own party and your own president. I just never thought we would get to the day where people are willing to cheer on and defend the President of the United States defending the deaths of our allies. And I don't think it's good for the president to. And what makes it worse is that he's not going to apologize. And you know he's not going to apologize. And some of you love the fact that he says stuff and he refuses to apologize or be owned by the left. This isn't about being owned by the left. It's about the basic decency of being a good person. We've just gone through multiple weeks of the president bullying our allies to try to get Greenland. And he's not now going to get Greenland, nor will he ever get Greenland. And you'll just rearrange the board and say it's 4D chess, and he never really wanted it to begin with. You keep making excuses, and sometimes it's inexcusable. I wonder sometimes about your own personal conduct. Having a sense of shame about stuff is a good thing. There's a play, someone sent me a clip of it. It's a drag queen. And the drag queen is a man dressed as a woman, dressed as Charlie Kirk. And it is as offensive and satanic and ridiculous as you could think it is. And people on the left are cheering it on. Why? Because they have no decency. They have no shame. And don't think that you have decency or a good sense of shame when you're willing to start excusing yourself. You lose your shame and dignity and decency as well. It's not something that just happens on the other side. I didn't mean to spend this long with it, but it really does. I find it offensive. And I've said this week I would rather him than them, and I mean it. They would be a whole lot worse, policy-wise. But what gets me more is not the president, because he does stuff like this. It's the people on his side who will get mad at me for calling him to account, or will excuse it, or will think it's no big deal, or laugh that he got a rise out of people for doing it, or the reaction of those, and they're actually worse than him on stuff like this. The President of the United States of America means more than just my guy or my party. And, you know, the Democrats right now, they've taken this belief that, well, he's not my president, he's your president. And they don't want to respect him or his office because he's not the guy they voted for. And when he does this sort of stuff, he's not respecting the deaths of the allies who died with us on the battlefield, makes him no better than those people who say he's not my president because he's not the guy I voted for. They're not my troops. They just died for our cause. But who cares? You got to have some moral decency. We're a great nation because we're a good people. We will stop being a great nation if we stop being a good people. And times like this make me wonder if we've decided to stop being a good people. If you want us to be a great nation, we need to be a good people. And to be a good people, we need to be a moral people. And to be a moral people, we need to be willing to say, stuff like this, Mr. President, it's wrong and you should apologize. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. This is the other side of decency for you, from the president being dismissive of the deaths of our allies, soldiers on the front lines in Iraq and Afghanistan. A Florida hospital has terminated a nurse. The nurse hoped White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt would get severely injured during childbirth. Quote, "As a labor and delivery nurse, it gives me great joy to wish Carolyn Leavitt a fourth-degree tear." Lexi Lawler, formerly a labor and delivery nurse at Baptist Health Boca Raton Regional Hospital, said in a video posted on TikTok, "I hope you effing rip from bow to stern and never poop normally again, you C-word," she added. A labor and delivery nurse wishing awful things on Carolyn Leavitt during childbirth. She got fired, and she deserved to be fired for her TikTok rant. And it's appalling to me that anyone would feel comfortable going on social media and saying something like that. I think decency and character have to matter. I think decency and character have to matter on both sides. And I think that the left doesn't police decency on its side. They defend it. They excuse it. And I don't think that's reason for us on our side to do that on our side, because we're not them. And that's a point I think so many people so often lose in these conversations, is you don't like them because of their lack of shame and decency. The solution is not to become like them. The solution is to distinguish yourselves from them by being better than them, being a better character, being a better, being of just better conduct, being of better morals. What a horrible thing. And the number of people on the left, I got to say, the number of people on the left who just flat out excuse this and are comfortable on social media being that horrible to other people is alarming to me. And again, the solution is not to become like them, but to provide a contrast from them so the American people stand with you on your side. Now, let me tell you about Swiss America. They've been warning people about a secret war on cash. They have been warning people about what's going on behind the scenes in the markets and the turmoil and with banks. They would love to get you your copy of their report, The Secret War on Cash. You can get it by calling or texting 800-289-2646. They're one of the nation's leaders in precious metals. I have bought gold from Swiss America. You can too, and find out about that from them. But really, just get this report for free from them. It'll help you with your retirement and your savings. Call them or text them 800-289-2646. The Secret War on Cash report. You get it completely free. Just mention Eric, E-R-I-C-K, at 800-289-2646. It includes, by the way, crypto and the government's war on your digital currency. So you go there, or you go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. You can also look for them on YouTube at Swiss America Trading. Now, they got a lot of informative stuff on their YouTube channel podcast, Swiss America Trading. You can go find there, or call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646, or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Message and data rates may apply. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Let's go to the phones. Eddie in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you're going to be up first. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. I was wanting to say something. Now, about it started last weekend on social media. These Indian groups, which I'm Indian, I think they're spreading fear among the Indian community, saying ICE is going to come and get you. They've already detained some Native Americans, and just spreading fear. Okay, and Democrats look like they got a pretty big reach, because these Indian groups are putting this out on social media, and there's a lot of Indians that are really believing it. And I just think that the Indians need to jump off the bandwagon. And I told my kids, carry your ID. If ICE pulls up on you, you show them your ID. If your name, they know what's going on. Don't believe what they're spreading.
Right. Yeah, there are so many lies out there about what ICE is doing and not doing. And I mean, the left right now really is running a fear campaign, hoping that people will be offended and scared and amped up to vote against the Republicans for, doing the legal job of getting deportations. To my knowledge, there are no American Indians anywhere in the country are being targeted by ICE. But I know the left is telling people that because they're trying to just run a fear campaign, which is really disappointing. Mike, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Yes, Eric, I need your opinion on this subject. That we know that when the Dems, and if they ever get power again, are going to expand the Supreme Court with a number of liberal justices. Why does Trump not do that now?
Well, because Eddie, or Mike, rather, we hear that all the time. But they didn't do it the last time. They controlled everything. They said they were going to, and they couldn't get the votes. So, every time both sides want to jump off the cliff, say, well, the other side's going to do it, so we should do it first, and yet the other side then takes power and doesn't do it. They had the opportunity. They had the majority when Biden was president, and the progressives were pushing him to do it, and they didn't do it. And so now the other side says, well, that was because Sinema and Joe Manchin were there, except Sinema and Joe Manchin weren't the only ones. They were the ones taking the arrows. In fact, if you ask Sinema and Manchin, they'll tell you even to this day that actually there were other Democrats who were in primaries who didn't want to have to step out and kill the filibuster. And so they were willing to take the slings and arrows for these other Democrats who otherwise would have stepped up. So I just think that we talk ourselves into this strategy of let's us be the ones to kill the filibuster because the other side is going to do it when they get power. And so we kill the filibuster, so then they can come in and say, well, they killed the filibuster. Now we're going to wipe them out. We're going to make Puerto Rico a state and D.C. a state and do all this other stuff. There are voices on our side who want you to believe the worst of the other side, and there's a lot about the other side that's terrible. All I can tell you is that we said the exact same thing about the Democrats in 2021 and 2022. And guess what? They didn't have the votes to do it. I don't think they have the votes to do it this coming time. And some of you say, well, we can't trust them. They get more and more radicalized. Yeah, I agree. They get more and more radicalized. But you also just had 8 Democrats decide to reopen the government when the progressives were demanding they keep it shut down. Are they really going to do it? Do you really want to? Some of you are never going to be convinced, and I can't convince you otherwise. All I can tell you is I'm old enough to remember on multiple occasions being told the Democrats were going to get rid of the filibuster for legislation, and they've never done it, and they've had ample opportunity to do it. And so you just move the goalposts and say, but they're going to get more and more progressive. They're going to get more and more radical. They say the same thing about us, and yet there always tends to be several senators who say we don't want to be like the House of Representatives, so we're not going to do it. And they don't want to be like the House. The filibuster makes the Senate unique. Personally, I think we should amend the Constitution to put the filibuster in the Constitution so no one can ever get rid of the filibuster in the Senate or keep scaring people about it. Amir, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show.
Hey, Eric. Quick question about the Davos visit. I personally don't think Trump had a great performance. He could have messaged different. I feel like he should have had a Rubio speak because I like the way Rubio just puts the message across, such elegant and all that. But my other thing is also NATO. For some reason, NATO wants America to be inside the NATO and be an equal partnership to all the other NATO nations because that's what they think of us. And I feel like Trump should have just said, look, we are the alpha and we need you to follow. Because the Canadian Prime Minister, the moment he didn't get what he wanted, he cozied up to China. Macron is threatening to cozy up, make deals with China. And they all going outside to the adversaries, to people that are kind of are not necessarily the best friends to try to make deals instead of, holding it together and all this. So I don't understand that. And also, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Zelensky's speech. I feel sorry for him. He kind of exposed what NATO really is and what the United States really is. I mean, the guy is at our mercy. And I feel like everything else comes priority than the people that are dying over there. Maybe he should just go shake hands with Putin and says, hey, I'll be another Belarus, and just leave the boundaries where they're at. Don't take over nothing, and I'll be another Belarus, just like Belarus is to Russia. And, I should have known better, because the NATO is clearly, they're all footsie-putting around. They're not doing what they need to do.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Zelensky just his speech. He sounds as frustrated, honestly, as the president and Scott Bessent do about the Europeans who continue to spend more buying Russian natural gas than they do in Ukraine. They keep saying they want Ukraine to win, and then they keep funding the Russia. It's just it really is a pathetic thing to watch the Europeans. And to your point, yeah, look, we should run NATO. And for those of you who just you don't understand your history here, there's a reason the United States has structured Europe so that Europe is dependent on us. I mean, we actually have, as a buddy of mine pointed out in an email earlier today, we have 400 years of history for why we want Europe to be dependent on us for military instead of themselves. And we have real opportunities to lead Europe and the free world and ensure we have some peace. And we've got to recognize that it's in our best interest to do that. And I just sometimes think the president gets bad advice on that front. I mean, he sometimes can't help himself, but the people around him can, and they don't. Though, I got to tell you, I'm surprised to see this in the Washington Post today. There's a headline in the Washington Post. It's an op-ed. It is from Meghan McArdle. There's a way to stop Trump. First, drop the fascist debate. Since Donald Trump entered the American political fray, his opponents have been debating what kind of threat he poses to democracy and what to do about it. In the New York Times last week, Michelle Goldberg declared the debate over in a column titled "The Resistance Libs Were Right." The obvious question is about what? Were they right to label him a fascist? That depends on what you mean by the term. As the Justice Department prosecutes Trump's enemies, the military stages smash-and-grab raids on foreign countries, and massed immigration and customs enforcement agents storm through American cities, it's hard to deny that the resistance libs were correct about some important things. Trump's authoritarian instincts, bellicose contempt for norms, and fundamental disrespect for America's democratic traditions. Those character flaws have been given much freer rein in a second term. But where ordinary people hear Trump is a fascist, they aren't primed for an academic debate over when right-wing populism shades over into fascism. They hear you saying Trump is either an ardent adherent of the political ideology known as fascism or a dictator whose practices are fascist, even if he eschews the name. Those stronger claims are less convincing in the first case because Trumpism looks more like a personal grift than a coherent ideology, and in the second, because for all of Trump's assaults on American institutions, he is not a dictator and is running out of time to become one. Now, here's the key paragraph for those of you who think Donald Trump is a fascist dictator. It has been 10 years since Donald Trump won his first election. By that point in their careers, Benito Mussolini had consolidated total power, while Adolf Hitler was deep into World War II and the Holocaust. Trump, by contrast, is pleading with the Supreme Court to let him remove Federal Reserve governors, which seems unlikely to succeed. Given another decade, could he build a power base in the judiciary or military that would enable him to seize a dictator's power? I don't know. But Trump is nearly 80 years old and he doesn't have another decade. That's not to say Trump isn't damaging our politics, our government, our standing in the world. America does look less like a liberal democracy than it did a decade ago, much less than I would have believed possible before 2016, but it's still a long way to go. A point Goldberg concedes towards the end of her column, writing that for now, we're trapped in the space between the liberal democracy most Americans grew up in and the dark, belligerent, authoritarian state that our government seeks to impose. I find that to be nonsense and deranged from Michelle Goldberg. Your mileage may vary on that, but the fact of the matter is Donald Trump's got ideas. He got elected, and he's been able to implement a lot of them because of the structure of our Constitution. And I just want to continue to point out to all of you something that I think is really, really very important. What I find notable about so much of the outrage from the left about Donald Trump and what he does is not that they want to stop presidents from doing that, but that they want Donald Trump to be stopped from doing that. The left is being very careful when they go to court and arguing about precedents because it's clear they want the power to do the things Donald Trump is doing. They don't want a court to rule in many cases that Donald Trump can't do certain things. They just want it to be ruled that he can't do them in the way he's trying to do them. And they're not moving Congress to restrain the power of the president. They're not trying to build a coalition. You got the Freedom Caucus. That's a pretty small government entity within the House of Representatives. And they're not asking the Freedom Caucus to join with them in passing legislation to strip the president of the ability to do tariffs. They're not asking them to strip the president of the ability to control aspects of the government or appoint people or not appoint people or anything like that. The left simply is opposed to Donald Trump wielding power. They're not opposed to the power. And that's the striking thing, even for these people like Michelle Goldberg and others at the New York Times and the Washington Post who insist that Donald Trump is a fascist dictator. They want presidents to have the power that Donald Trump is using. They just don't want Donald Trump to use it because they don't like the way he's using it. He's using the power in ways that they don't like. They just like the power for themselves. You'll excuse me for not buying into the hysteria that Donald Trump is an authoritarian because the left never recognizes the authoritarianism on their side. I recognize the authoritarian on our side, and as I've said, I have called out the president. I spent a half hour on this program saying he should apologize for his remarks about the Europeans. I've criticized the president on Greenland. But also, in many of the ways the left is criticizing him, it's about what he's doing, not the power he's using. You know how environmentalists, they lecture us on climate change and building near the ocean, and yet they all have beach houses, and the environmental elite, they all fly in private jets around the world to lecture us. They don't act like they really think climate change is a big deal. They talk about it as if it's a big deal, but they don't live their lives as if it's a big deal. The left is not living their lives as if authoritarianism is on the rise. They're just posturing as if Donald Trump is an abusive dictator. They're okay with abusive dictators if the abusive dictators are on the left, because one thing you find out about the left is they're never willing to recognize authoritarianism on their side. The left, for the last 4 years, has been attempting to pass laws in states around the country that would take children from their parents if their parents didn't agree to transition the kids. That's authoritarianism, and the left says, no, it's not. It's for the health and safety of the children. Mussolini said making the trains run on time was for the health and safety of the workers and the productivity of the businesses. The left has been attempting to shut down homeschool projects around the country. They say it's for the education of the children, but the homeschool projects have sprung up because the public schools are failing. And the left's solution is to force everyone into the failing public schools, not so kids might better read and write, but so kids might better understand pronouns. Friends, I got a lot of criticisms of the president, and I'm happy to level them because I think we have to hold our own side accountable. But I also find it very striking the left never holds its side accountable because the left finds its side flawless. And that's actually one of the reasons the left keeps losing to people like Donald Trump is because they're never willing to rein in their excesses. It's one reason I think we have to rein in our excesses so that we do keep winning. Hello, America. It is Eric Erickson here. This has been an exhausting roller coaster of a week dealing with my kid. And look, I appreciate the opinions. I had a very nice lady who sent me an email and said, you should make your kids stay. And I'm not going to for a lot of reasons I don't need to get into. I appreciate the input and advice, but the decision's been made. I've got her on a flight coming home tomorrow. If you're just checking in and you're like, what is going on? So we sent our daughter on Wednesday to the UK for study abroad. She got there and was just miserable the moment she got there. And the more she's gone on, she's been called the C word multiple times. Today, 3 times, one time an effing C word, just for walking down the street, mind you. She said the only people who were kind were, encountered several Muslims, particularly an Islamic lady who was very nice to her. The Brits were just downright rude. And, you know, I got to say, as a parent, we actually reached out to some people there, a church and some church staff, and they have a wellness advisor on the campus for kids who might be homesick and study abroad, reached out to us. Nobody wanted to even just go by and say hi. We tried to get different people to engage with her, and no one could be bothered. And I mean, I realize I mean, you can't make somebody do it, but here are the people who they have the outreach programs, and they say they're willing to help, and nobody was. And then we just started finding out actually that, I mean, it was notable that the kids in the university, like the student union there, all are required to have their pronouns. The area is actually the least religious part of all of Britain. Fewer Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindu, everybody. It's just mostly atheist. And it just wound up within 72 hours being very obvious this was not going to work. So we're bringing her home tomorrow. I'm a little bit deflated by it, honestly. I was hoping that she would be able to suffer through, but I'm not going to make her, particularly when she's being yelled at and called the C word repeatedly and all that. I don't know. I'm sad. I feel like there was an opportunity there that was missed, but also we had a very long talk this morning. And she's like, it's not going to be a good fit. And I realized that. And the classes that she thought would be the good fit, she can tell from everything it's not going to be. So she'll come home and regroup here to try to finish out the semester here. I hate it for her. I hate that was her first experience going somewhere, was to be treated that poorly by random strangers. But there we have it. She'll be home in time before the ice storm tomorrow. And you guys, particularly east of the Mississippi, wherever you are, stay safe and dry and warm. I hope you're with power. The weather forecast changed for us now. We're not going to get any ice where I am, but Atlanta still might. And hopefully none of you will be frozen in on Monday. Have a great, great weekend.